And so I think that's one reason why I can see people's samskaras, but I also get to see like glimpses of your choices in the future.
Yeah.
And that's actually like awesome and sometimes scary.
Yeah. It's a lot of power to kind of hold on to.
Well, I didn't.
Or responsibility, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I never even thought about it like that, really.
Mm.
I never really did. I just thought about it in order to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll never forget this one girl, and it was probably because I think you know how you'll always know since you're a little kid that you have something.
Mm-hmm.
Always known it, but never really quite totally figured it out. As a matter of fact, when I was in college or whatever, I would like to go to bars and sit and figure out everybody's story. I'd watch all around the and I go, yeah.
Just people watching everybody.
Like and figure it out. And but this one girl, and I was sitting with her, and I was doing kind of a spiritual reading thing, and I had two very distinct images. One was of her as this bird in a cage, literally like ducking blows, being hit and like flying all around and still getting caught in the cage. And the other one was of her as this kind of really strong, peaceful businesswoman. And I remember, I can still see she had like a gray suit and a white, and her hair was pulled back. And I went, she's at a crossroads. Like right now, she's at a crossroads.
Without talking to her.
No. And so when we're done gazing, I shared with her what I saw. Well, she had been abused by her mom all her life, like hit. And so...
Had you never met her
no.
before? Yeah.
No.
Wow.
It was the first time that I saw because we were working on future, that I saw the future as two clear options. I mean, sometimes I just see you.
Yeah.
Like one of my friends who was a monk. He was a Buddhist monk. I met him. I was laying on the floor. I would come and practice before. I was laying on the floor, and it was one of those surrender to God moments.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, God, I really need some help. And I'm just laying on the middle of the yoga floor. I'm like, okay, I can really use some help. And I hear the door open. And I look over, and I'm like, at first I tried to ignore it, and I look over, and there's this Buddhist monk standing with Francine at the time in the doorway. And I went, okay, God, that was pretty fast.
Wow.
Like, okay. Yeah.
Answered the call.
Answered the call. And I was sitting with him one time, and I saw him married with kids. And a beard, because he was bald at the time, and with a beard, and really happy. And I forget how old he was at the time, because this had to be like 2005, 2007. And I said, this is what I see. And he like laughed at me. He's like, no. Guess what? He's married. And I think he has kids now.
Wow.
And he's got that beard.
Wow.
That I saw. So that was kind of cool.
That's crazy.
It's kind of cool.
That is. When did you realize that you...
Probably when I was... Well, most people thought it was BS.
Sure.
In college. I don't even know when. It kind of came gradually.
It's just a certain level of intuition.
Yeah, I think anybody can do it.
Yeah.
You just got to plug in.
That's it.
Yeah.
I love it. I've been recording you this whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
we
right.
started. We're on.
We're
I
on.
knew you were going to tell a really good story, so I was like, I gotta get this going, because we've been talking before this podcast started.
He was great.
That's awesome.
He was the first one to give me crystal. A huge crystal, and that's what started my crystal therapy.
What's crystal therapy?
So have you done
I've never done it.
So various crystals have healing properties,
Mm-hmm.
but you're innately attracted to the ones that you need at a given point in time. And so like quartz crystals is a protector from evil or dark.
Okay.
It's one of the master crystals. What's really interesting is that lately, and I used to be attracted to sodalite and this other one that actually burnt, because the Buddhist monk, Josh, the first time, Francine used to have this amethyst bed, and you would let him, he's like, I'm going to show you what crystal therapy is, I'm going to set you up. So I'm laying on this crystal bed, and it's all amethyst, and then it's kind of encased in, cushion or whatever, and they can heat it up. And so I lay down on this bed, and he takes all these crystals, and he had selenite and sodalite. I didn't even see all the stones that he put on me, but he had me lined all the way up, and I had a ruby at the base.
Do they align them and different crystals go in? Or is it always the same crystal in the same chakra spot? Or is it connected to your chakras?
Yes, it's definitely connected.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's different ones for different situations?
Right. Well, so, red coral, ruby, red jasper, they're all root chakra, and they're more about grounding or connecting you.
Okay.
Yeah, so orange citrine.
Yeah.
So he had lined me all the way up, and it was the first time I'd ever done something like that. And he put on music, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna leave. I'll be back in a little while. And I'm just laying there, and I'm meditating. And all of a sudden, my head, like the crown of my head, is on fire, like it's burning. And I got up. I thought the bed caught on fire because it was a heated bed. And I'm like, I thought the bed was on fire. I mean, it really was burning my head. And there was nothing there. And I went, okay. So I laid back down, and it happened again. And I thought, okay, just stay in the meditation and let it pass.
Yeah.
Well, then all of a sudden, I was with this woman, this older woman. I know I was in California, and I know we were walking on the beach, and I know she was sad.
This is in your meditation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see her white, she has kind of a white bobbed haircut. I could see what she was wearing. It was these really light kind of capris and this blue shirt, and I had a glimpse of her face, and I'm kind of walking behind her in the sand, and she was sad, and I was just holding her hand. I was just with her, and I kind of came out of it, and I was like, okay. I didn't have any idea what that was. The next day, that woman walked into the place.
The woman that you saw?
On the beach. And I went, I know you. And she said, I don't think so. I'm from California.
No way.
Yeah, like San Diego, I think it was. Yeah. Yeah.
That is wild. What was significant about
So
that?
I think it had to do with the crystal therapy.
Yeah. And that kind of put you in touch with...
It let me connect to a different person.
Like a different,
in a different realm.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cool.
That is so cool, man.
Yeah.
I think, so how do you feel like you use that? Like, how do you, what do you do with that? Do you just kind of do, I've heard people talk about, just like, I have a friend, he calls it his divine download. And he's like, it just, shit just comes to me, Or do you feel like you're able to tap into that at any time?
Well, intentionally, during meditation.
Yeah.
I use the crystals for Reiki, and for my own Reiki, and for other people to kind of realign. I'm pretty tapped in to now where I'm feeling what I'm feeling, and I know more now about certain crystals. I'm not like an expert or whatever, to know what needs healing. Like when I broke my sacrum and coccyx, that was like the most painful thing I'd ever had.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do anything literally but lay flat or stand up for, I don't know, it felt like forever.
Yeah.
And so,
Because that's a serious
that hurt so bad.
injury. Yeah.
And so I would use that clear quartz crystal and move it all around while I did Reiki on me. Yeah.
Why do you think you're able to do that? Do you think it was something that was kind of given to you?
I think anybody can do it. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
That's cool.
I think some people you have to be willing and you have to believe.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a big part of it, is just belief, because people will find something to believe in, you know, whether it's good or bad, or everybody kind of finds their own, I don't know what you want to call it, like, you know, higher power or belief system, or creates their own moral code, that kind of thing.
What do you believe in?
I believe in a universal power. I don't think, I would say that I believe more so in the ideals of like karma and, you know, yeah, a universal power, just a universal energy. I kind of like, when I think about it, I always picture just like a blob of like, you know, blues and reds and greens, almost like a lava lamp of things that just like is around you all the time, like in a different dimension. And it's just kind of, you know, everybody's just kind of like flowing through in this blob of anything.
Can you influence that energy?
I think you can. Like, I picture it as, you know, there's like a circle and it's like you're trying to push into something and it's either going to be permeable and let you through, or it's going to bounce you back out into another one, like a pinball machine kind of thing. You know? And I think that's how, like, that's where I credit, or that's at least the vision that I get when you think about people's energies being close. And we talk about, like, you know, personal space and those types of things. Like, when you're closer to somebody, you can pick up kind of how their day is going, you know? And I like to picture it as we're all kind of floating around in this, like, I don't know, muck or goo or whatever you want to call it. And it's kind of flowing you in a certain direction.
So, you know how you were talking about earlier, how everything you thought about your CrossFit gym turned out to be?
Yeah.
Right? So, thought energy manifest into form. You ever thought about, like, especially when you're first in love, because love is like the strongest, right? And you're so in love and you can't stop thinking about that person. You think about them all the time, and she calls you.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my God, you know, and whatever you were thinking about was exactly what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so part of my belief is that thought energy draws to you and manifests in your life. So what you give your energy to, you actually create in that pool of consciousness, and you pull to. So if all I'm doing is thinking negative thoughts, oh, I'm going to be late, oh, I'm going to be stuck in a traffic jam, oh, you know, I'm not going to make any money, then guess what?
That's how it's going to be.
That's exactly how and so I think part of the loop with people is in surrender, to understand that. So ego, right? So our little craving self that says, oh, I need to get ahead, or I need to make more money, or I need to do this, I need to prove myself. That's small self. And so that's based in fear, attachment, aversion, and ego, right? And so when we're operating from that state of, and I deal with people like this all the time, oh, I've got to make money, oh, I don't want to leave this job because I'll never be, I'm like, if you keep thinking that, then that's absolutely the truth.
Yeah.
But once you finally let go of little self and you confront those fears and you confront those attachments and you come into a higher state, you actually completely trust that everything that's given to you is exactly perfect at the exact perfect time in order to lead you to the highest. And by the way, that is abundance, because there's not ever lack of anything.
Because you're getting what you're ready for almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something I buy into that, and that goes along with, you know, what I believe in is I think the universe or this energy is gonna put you in situations that you're ready for. You know, I think that people do have free will and people do have abilities to make their own decisions and such, but I think when you override that higher power, that's when you're operating from, I guess what you would say is your small self, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be the one that's more often than not tainted as to which direction you go in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think it's the way I take it is, you know, I'll have these ideas in my head, and something that I'm learning is, you know, I had this idea in my head, but like you just said too, it's perfect. Just, you know, wait or sit on it or think about, you know, what's actually happening. Like, use a resource, ask something smarter than you, or ask, you know, and see what answers kind of come your way. So I think operating, I'm kind of like conceptualizing this for myself right now too, operating from that smaller self, that ego-driven brain is, it's not always going to be wrong, but it's definitely not always going to be right. So you have to kind of tap into something more driven, or something that's going to guide you in a better, more positive or alignment. I'm not trying to think of the word, like a better path to set yourself up on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And kind of how I relate to it is, so even little self, even the kleshas. So the kleshas are avidya. Avidya is ignorance, right? And then ego, fear, attachment, aversion. So those are known as the kleshas. So even that piece of it, which is operating from little self, there's a light side of a dark situation. So no matter, however we think the intention is pure. Like, all right, so here's an example. So I grew up, you know, my dad's an accountant, my mom's a nurse. I thought I was German, found out I'm really...
Yeah, I remember that story.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
And hard work, you know, you work hard, it's honorable, it's something to be admired, you know, and you make a good job, good money, have a family, right? So that was kind of the structure. And so I got out of college, pursued my dream, whatever, that's even a longer story, I don't want to go there. But I ended up working at Xerox. And so I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, right? So, and it fed my ego. It helped me feel smarter about myself. It helped me feel accomplished about myself. I was definitely attached to some of the material. Like, I had a red sports car, and I had, you know, a house right, you know, a couple blocks off the beach, and I had $500 suits, which back then was a lot of money.
Sure.
So I was definitely attached to that. There was a version of, I grew up relatively poor, not relatively poor, but very middle class.
Sure.
And so I know I don't want to do that. For a long time, I didn't want to have kids. I don't want to be the family thing. So that was averse. That's all small self in operation. And it worked for a while. And everything that I attracted to me, like, you know, I had one of my bosses one time put me in a territory that was 95% competitive, meaning I had to get all new business.
Yeah.
There was no seed accounts. And he looked at me and said, and I was the only girl on the team at the time, and he was like, yeah, well, we'll see how you do. And I was just like hell-bent.
Yeah, he was kind of like giving you the...
Oh, yeah. And so I did it.
Yeah.
I only ever lost one account, like in one deal, ever. But that's all was still little self. And that worked for 11 years.
Yeah. Was this before you undertook sort of like...
Yoga.
Your yoga and
Oh,
all
yeah.
that? Yeah, okay. Cool.
Yeah. This was hardcore. Wake up. I ran.
Yeah.
I drank. I smoked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was quote unquote highly successful, and then I started to change. Then I found towards the end of Xerox, I found yoga, and then things started to shift. So then I started to become more aware of how I was operating, and that really wasn't happiness, and I'll never forget it. So I just closed this really big deal. It was like a $4.3 million deal, which was at least a $50,000 commission check back then. And I'm on the phone with this order processing person who's like, well, you forgot to check this box. And I'm like,
yeah.
And I'm literally beating the phone against the cubicle. That's how angry I was. And the poor guy on the other side of the cubicle came up. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not okay." And that was kind of like the breaking point. That was kind of the point where I went, "This is not cool."
Yeah. Where you kind of have that step back and you're like, "What am I doing? Why am I beating a phone on a cubicle right now?"
Yeah.
For what?
Money.
Over money.
And because I was afraid to disappoint or let down a customer, that was nuts. Anyway, so that's kind of where it started.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody does that. You go along, you're unconscious, and then you get a little glimpse of it. You're like, and then you can either feed that fire or you cannot feed that fire.
Yep.
And so some people feed it for a while, and then they realize that, the people I'm attached to don't like that. They don't like this new person that I'm becoming. So they return to the old person.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's do you attribute a lot of these patterns or norms that we fall into to the people around us? Like how much of it is environment and how much of it is intrinsic?
I think we attract them, If all I ever wanted to do, think about this for you. If all I want to do is party, right? Make money, party, go out and have a good time, who am I going to attract?
People who want to party. Yeah.
That's it. And I think, the universe gives us glimpses of or nudges of consciousness. And then we have a choice. Do we want to stay there, or do we want to transcend, ascend, transform, and begin?
It's kind of like that classic story of muses. There's all these things around you that are really cool in the moment.
Yeah.
But what's beyond that stuff? There's all these great parties and money and flashy things that are these muses that you think you want to be around, and they'll trap you.
Well, and I think that's because that's what I was trying to get with you. Because that's where suffering comes in. So suffering, however great or small, real or imagined, actually leads you to a choice. So that suffering can be, I have a dirty kitchen all the time, and I'm constantly coming in and cleaning the kitchen. And I can keep cleaning that kitchen, or I can go, hey, I come home every day and I'm not doing this anymore. So that's a small example of a way I like a clean kitchen. I'm attached to a clean kitchen. And that's suffering. Now I can continue doing that and staying that suffering, or I can make a change.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's a little example.
Yeah.
And then you have something like, a car accident, or a wake-up call, or a relationship or death. And those are kind of bigger suffering.
Yeah. And I think with suffering, a lot of times, one of the roads that I find to be taken, and I've certainly taken this path myself, is the victim role, where you're kind of, and not to say that nobody's a victim of anything, but just you're creating this victim mindset within yourself.
Give me an example.
So, for example, say say someone is a drug addict, or for myself, say, I'm doing drugs, and someone says, oh, Case, you need help, or this or that, or blah, 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 or tries to help or extend the olive branch and understand and that kind of thing. And I'm just constantly saying, you don't understand me. You don't understand my life. Or maybe a better example is, say, two brothers and their father dies. It's both of their fathers. They're both two brothers. They're relatively in the same situation. And one says, you don't understand how I feel, or you don't know what it's like to be me, or you don't this and that. And you're putting that wall of separation where that's your brother, that's his father who passed away also. Maybe he does kind of understand, but it's better for ourselves and selfishly to make ourselves feel unique in our own problems,
Dualism.
Right.
Yeah.
So rather than meeting these problems where someone might be suffering, or someone has a heartache or something going on in their life, they'll make themselves unique, or I'll make myself unique in that nobody gets me or nobody understands where I'm coming from.
That's a little self.
Mm-hmm. And therefore no one can help me, and I'm just going to be, in this trap of, my life sucks, or I'm going to do this or that, or blah, 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 and you're never getting out. Or people can, I think one of the things that's big, that I think personally, that if someone is going through, just because we're using the example of suffering, if someone has something going on, it's super rare that you can come out of that on your own. Now, in order to come out of it, you have to decide on your own that you're ready to be done suffering. But whether it's getting help from a higher power, or it's getting help from someone you trust, or a family member, or something along those lines, a lot of things that happen to us are bigger than our own abilities to overcome. So there has to be some sort of connection, or some sort of something that, you're not the victim, you're not unique, or even if you are unique and no one's ever had the problem that you have, that you're going through, you allow somebody or something to help you.
Hey, I'm distracted by that music.
Oh yeah, where is that?
I'm gonna ask him to turn that off, because every time I focus on you, I'm hearing something else.
Yeah, go ahead. If you want to turn that off.
I do want to turn it off.
Yeah.
You said something about, when you're really suffering, you come to a choice,
Mm-hmm.
where you kind of make the choice on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of making that choice, you need others, or others are drawn to you to help you, support you in that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, and I kind of think that's the same thing as like God consciousness.
Right.
So it's the same thing if I'm drinking and partying, and I'm attracting drinking and partying people. But when I start to make a choice that's toward a higher purpose, to a higher self, then I automatically attract those people.
Mm-hmm.
I think of it as like a spiritual telephone call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, when you intensify that thought process and you fuel that with emotion and energy and feeling, and you allow yourself to be in that state, you vibrate at a different frequency.
Mm.
And so magically, negative people like fall away from you. They just do.
Right.
And higher vibrational people are attracted to you.
Right.
That's why I don't believe necessarily in coincidences.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like you're vibrating at a certain level.
And there is even science to back that up, right?
I'm not totally familiar with that.
I'm not completely familiar with it either, but from what I understand, it's everybody gives off, and things that we'll describe as magic can also be scientifically backed up, as in we all give off an electric pulse from our bodies. And these types of things that come off of us, think about protons and electrons and neutrons and such, there's a balance there.
Yeah.
So what we're physically, the energy that we're giving off, like you said, it's going to attract things that are going to feed it. So whatever you're giving off is what you're going to consume. Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. Spiritual phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that outside?
I think it
Do you
is.
think we want to go off? I'll jab away here. Yeah.
Is that bothering you?
No. Yeah, I can hear it, but I just
I was listening to you, then all of a sudden I heard something like,
It's all good. We're actually didn't even do an introduction on this podcast. Podcast for the people. I'm here with Susan Smith of One Yoga, and we're actually recording on site at Yoga Underground. So there's probably a little bit of background noise going on. There's music playing. I think we're in this like really cool sort of courtyard area that there's all sorts of things going on. So if you hear any background noise or anything like that, that's where it's coming from. So, but perks of being on site and recording. I was just explaining where we are, what we're doing, and why there's probably some background noise.
oh, Halloween.
Yeah.
So
Halloween. Yeah.
do you know what? So I always thought this was cool. Do you know St. Hallows Eve? Do you know what it's about?
I feel like I always thought that it was like the Mexican like Day of the Dead. I always thought that we kind of took it from them.
Well,
But I don't know too much about it now.
so, and I don't know the full detail, but I was at church a while back, and my priest was talking about, so it's the day when the veil between the spiritual world and the physical world is the thinnest. And I think there's a bunch of different countries that have different beliefs. So it's when the spirit worlds come back in. And so the costumes are a way of preventing evil spirits from identifying you and taking you.
So you're trying to disguise.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But I think it's also about calling back the dead, our loved ones that have passed.
Yeah.
And connecting with them.
Yeah.
So I don't know the whole story, but when she told that in church one day, I'm like, oh, that's super cool.
Interesting.
And so I started reading up on it this morning. Yeah.
I didn't really know much about it. Yeah, I always knew that Dia de los Muertos was that holiday, but I always kind of, I don't know, like Valentine's Day is like a Hallmark holiday kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I kind of thought that Halloween might have been along those lines too. And everybody just likes candy, so.
No, I think the treats are symbolic of, because it's the end of the harvest time, and I think the treats are symbolic of like Thanksgiving thanks and giving out the harvest.
I never would have known that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So are you going to do anything as far as like, a ritual or anything along those lines, like getting in touch with lost ones and stuff like that today?
I feel like I do that every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. I feel like I do that every day.
Do you think that a lot of your, I'm trying to think how I want to phrase this question, but the question I'm looking for is something along the lines of like, you're a very intuitive person, and you weren't always that way. How much of that is practice? And how much of that is just kind of like a gift that you were given when you were born?
That's a good question.
Because I know you said everybody has that capability.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, but I think you're right. But I think certain people, like such as yourself, and these people when you talk to them. And I actually just talked to a guy on my last podcast about the same thing. And these people when you talk to them, you just kind of get to know them, and you look at them, and you're like, that person's got something. There's something about them. It's the energy that they give off, or it's the way that they walk, or just something in general. And
I feel like it is a tool. I feel like it like a tool that you sharpen, and that the more you use, the better it gets. I also feel that being intuitive is part about being vulnerable and being willing to be vulnerable. Yeah, the more you use anything, the stronger it gets. I'm giving my energy to it. I feel like I've always had kind of a connection with the spirit world ever since I was like 5. I mean, I very distinctly remember like my first conversation with God. Like that image is still very strong. And I think were you in the classroom when Karen and I were talking about, like, we slept in the same bedroom and the little people?
I might have been.
So,
but I don't remember the story per se.
My sister and I used to sleep in same bedroom, and I used to wake up in the middle of the night, and I would watch. They looked like tiny shadow figures, small, and they were on her bed, on top of her, hoeing and raking and shoveling. They were like gardeners.
Like gardening her.
And they were, you could only ever see like the little shadow outline of them. And I used to just watch them. And then I would fall asleep. I was never afraid.
Yeah.
And so I'm 55 now, right? And probably 2 or 3 years ago, I'm telling this story, and Karen happened to be in that workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, "You saw them too."
No.
I know. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So here we have had this whole lifetime together, and we never...
And you never discussed it or anything.
Yeah.
But she
saw
had
him
the
too.
same experience. Wow.
I know.
That's crazy.
That was super cool.
What do you think was going on with that? Why do you think...
That's the other thing. I don't think I really try and figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't feel bad. It didn't feel evil. Maybe they were gardening her. Like
just getting her ready.
Yeah. Like, I didn't really...
Huh.
Yeah.
Do you ever ask that to yourself? Like, why, like, a vision that you might have or anything like that? Like, what's going on here? And
what am I supposed to know from this? What am I supposed to see or take action? Yeah.
Do you let that, would you say that ultimately guides
Definitely
all your decisions?
Yeah.
Maybe not all or most.
I try to let it guide most of them.
Yeah.
If not, little self thinks it's in charge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's something that, because not everybody has the opportunity to, like be in yoga or have the conversation. How does somebody start this?
Pay attention.
Just simple awareness.
Look at people. See people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't judge people. Really see what they're going through. Feel them. Allow yourself to be seen. Allow yourself to feel.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things, and this is just popped in my head, and I remember that I wanted to say this, what you said, vulnerability. Mm-hmm. I think that is one of, if there's a list of top 3 or top 5 things that people need, it's vulnerability. Because in our society, we're taught to do not show vulnerability, don't show, push on, no weakness or that kind of thing.
Those stupid friggin' phones.
How? Yeah.
That's a way of not being vulnerable, not being seen.
Not showing your true self.
Not ever. Yep.
Shedding the mask.
Yep.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that drill. I talk about that class that we had all the time, where you had us write down like our name and all these like, normal things, and then introduce yourself.
Yeah.
I tell people about that all the time. Like, dude, you gotta try this. Just even like write it down yourself and think about it.
You should lead a group like that. Don't tell them it's coming.
Yeah.
Do some kind of workshop and use that.
It's like a catalyst.
As the way to get, it gets real fast.
It does. It's awesome.
You can't hide.
I think for me, and I'll only talk about myself here, when we did that, and I read through the things, and I was like, oh, man, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what to say. And then when it was my turn, I was like, just say the first thing that comes to your mind. And I think I I was like, I'm fucking crazy, or like something along those lines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was awesome, man. It's
Yeah.
so cool. Such a cool practice to like, one, have the opportunity to be in a room of people that are not going to judge you for what you say or anything along those lines, which that in itself I think is something that everybody can do, as give people the opportunity to express themselves, and everybody can make that change within themselves, I think. But the other side is just to be able to essentially just unload all these things about you and be completely vulnerable is, you can't even describe it. Like I'm trying to describe it right now, you can't really describe how that feels and how powerful that is.
Yeah, and actually that's how you get your power back.
Yeah.
People got it all twisted up. People think that by protecting or pretending or doing whatever that they keep their power. No. When you're vulnerable, you reclaim the pieces that you discarded.
Right.
And you re-empower yourself by becoming whole.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I think, would you say that, like, vulnerability and such, how come people, well, I guess let me ask this, how come people don't do that?
Because they're so caught in little self. They're so caught in, fear, and everybody talks about this, but fear governs every single little action. So I feel like the doorway out is to do something scary every single day, at least once.
Yeah.
And to constantly address fear, like, and different things send people in a tizzy. I was driving to Dover yesterday, and I pull out, and there's a tree down, and so I know I'm going to be at least 20 minutes late. Now, some people, that would send them in a tailspin.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm meant to be late. And I text the girl, I'm like, I'll be there when I be there, And so for me, it was an opportunity to just enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like with fear, like are you going to let that fear govern you? I'm trying to think of a better example than.
I know what you're saying. So people will have this fear, or like, the example, like you're going to be late, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be late. Now I'm going to be in trouble. Everybody's going to think I'm an asshole or this or that.
It's crazy.
And then it just ruins you. And then you get there and everyone's like, oh, hey man.
Yeah.
How are you?
It's insane.
Yeah.
What they do in their heads.
Or just, I think that's something that is so internalized, but it gets to a point for people, and I'll come up with an example here. It gets to a point where people will physically,
Oh yeah.
you can tell, like animals can sense fear. Like you can see it physically, you can tell just energetically, and that's those vibrations that people go off,
Yeah.
So if public speaking, I love public speaking. I could talk in front of people all freaking day
Yeah,
long
so
and just talk
that's
about
freak
nothing.
people out though.
Yeah, but public speaking, just someone gets up there, their chest gets all red, their shoulders kind of come up to their ears.
Blotchy.
Blotchy eyes.
Yeah.
They don't look up from their note cards at all.
Yeah.
And that fear is crazy. And this could be a person who otherwise is really intelligent or really likable or really an expert in whatever they're talking about. But they have just this one aspect of fear or something that's kind of holding them back or pulling them back, and it's not going to allow them to essentially be as effective as they want to be in this example of public speaking, right?
That's why in the teacher training, everybody, regardless of whether they ever want to teach, has to get up and cue. Because they learn to address the fear of using their voice to communicate, to see and observe what's going on, to speak to that in that moment. It's actually, so as you move through the chakras, like this is the smallest, the throat chakra is the smallest one. And so as fear, because fear rises up
Mm-hmm.
Anger rises out, like there's a direction
Mm-hmm.
to certain emotional energy. And as that rises up, in this, then the head gets involved, then ego gets involved, and it literally gets caught here.
And just you get choked up.
You get choked up.
I like it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that fear, because I'll ask this question to people sometimes too, you know, if you could, you know, you just have the general question, if you could do anything that you want and there's no fear of anything bad happening, people will tend to give you like the honest answer or something that's like really lofty to them or those kind of things. And then you kind of say, well, why don't you do that? You know, if you can, how do people, well, tell me what you think, how do people start to overcome this fear? You face things that you're afraid of on a daily basis, you know, but how do you build up sort of this like, I don't know, like strength against fear or overcoming these sort of things to where it really makes a strong person or an empowered person?
What's one of your biggest fears?
One of my biggest fears. I'm really afraid of I'm really afraid of allowing outside influences guide what I do, for a fear of like not being liked by people, like an insecurity.
So you're afraid of letting outside influences, meaning people.
Because I'm a type of person where whether people know it or not, like I really care if somebody likes me, and it bothers me if I think somebody doesn't, and I'll like adapt or change myself to be liked.
So that's a samskara. Because you did adapt and change yourself to be liked. So pick the person you did it with the most. Who did you change yourself for the most? Or rebel against the most?
Probably, I would probably say my father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the biggest fear is actually in dealing with or confronting what you changed about yourself in order for him to accept, love, give you attention. And so actually the greatest fear for you will be confronting him. Yeah. And as you reclaim you, because we all do it, whatever pieces you changed, and you say, I did this, and you own that, it loses its power over you. And you actually move into fearlessness, and you actually connect more with the divine consciousness, because there's the opposite of fear is love, and that's a state of pure love. And so as we move away from fear, we move into love, we move into consciousness. Yeah.
I see. Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I think probably right now my biggest fear is that I, however well intended, unconsciously handed down bad habits to my kids. And they're gonna repeat some of the mistakes that I made that caused me suffering.
Yeah.
And I am deathly afraid that something could happen to them. I mean, I was pretty reckless and very lucky I mean, so I do believe in angels because I figure
Yeah.
I've had a couple of them
watching over your
for a
back.
long time.
Well, as a parent too, that you're, even if you don't have this fear, you're a parent, dude.
Oh,
That's your kid.
there's
It's always gonna be there.
that's the only unconditional love
Yeah.
that I've ever experienced.
I wrote that down in my journal because when we were talking, I forget, someone was talking during our thing, and you said something along the lines of like, a mother's love is like the only unconditional love, you know. And I'm not a parent, but I wrote that down because I was like, you know, that is true, man. That
Yeah.
it's not to say people can't unconditionally love things, but that is something that when it happens, don't mess with Mama Bear. Like, you know, it's there.
I mean, and you think about this, you know, even in relationships where you really love the person, if that person starts, you know, to have behavior that you can't deal with, or starts being a royal asshole all the time, that's it.
Yeah.
Like,
Later.
yeah,
Yeah.
not with the kids. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you do then as a parent? Because obviously your first instinct is to protect them from making the same mistakes that you made.
Actually own it.
Or do you look at, that's what I was going to say, do you look at it as, you know, well, I made these mistakes and I've been able to learn from it and grow from it and that sort of thing. Maybe this is just part of their...
I'm truthful with them, which has been really hard. I am really truthful with them. I remember taking my, I guess Greg was 16 at the time, and he was going to this party, and I knew that I knew that I knew. When I walked in the house, I knew there were drugs in this house. I just knew it. And inside the house was like kind of ratty-tatty, dirty. And then outside in the backyard, it was like a different world. They had like a pool and a basketball court and a fire pit and all this stuff. And I was like, and all of his friends, and Greg wasn't one of these kids that went to a bunch of parties. He was my stay-at-home boy. He's like, Mom, can you please just trust me? And inside of me, everything is going, no,
I don't trust you.
I think something bad's gonna happen. And he's like, please, please, please. And I was like, okay, you can stay at the party. And he's like, can I spend the night? And I'm like, and I walked up and talked to the mom, and she's like, oh no, you know, the boys will be sleeping downstairs, the girls will be sleeping upstairs. And I was like, I don't think I'm okay with this. I don't think I'm okay. And he's like, you have to trust me. And I thought, okay. So I said yes, and I left, and I went home. 3:30 in the morning, I woke up, and I knew something had happened.
You didn't get a call, you woke up on your own?
No.
Yeah.
And I just knew that I knew. And I'm like, something's going down. And so you can't really do anything. Like, you can't go over. So in the morning, I woke up. I'm like, I'm going to get Dunkin' Donuts, and I don't eat donuts, but I'm going to take Dunkin' Donuts over. That's my excuse.
That's your excuse, yeah.
In the door. So I could buy all these donuts, come over, knock on the door. The mom walks to the door, wired for sound. Yep. And I was like, so where are the kids? Oh, they're all upstairs sleeping. I'm like, oh, did the girls spend the night? She's like, no, they went home. And I went, okay, well, she goes, well, they're really sleeping. Can you come back in a little bit? So I had to leave and come back.
So you know that's like a...
Yeah. So I came back, walk upstairs, and there's one room. It was like, first of all, it was gross coming up the stairs. So somebody had clearly thrown up. And all the kids are piled in this one room. And Greg and two girls are all, and I was like, and I had already written everything that I needed to say to him. So he was my first love letter.
Oh, okay.
That was my first big love letter to him.
Yeah.
Because really, the whole thing was about me
Mm-hmm.
and what happened to me. But anyway, so I get him upstairs. I'm like, come on, we're going home. Time to leave. And I plan to take him to Charcoal Pit because,
Okay.
yeah, neutral ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, neutral ground. We get in the car and I'm like, yeah, so, hey, the girls, that they spend the night? He goes, oh, yeah. So the mom lied straight to my face. And my son told me the truth. He goes, yeah, Mom, they did. He goes, we let the girls have the bed and all the guys, and there was a pile full of kids in there. All the boys slept on the floor. And I was like, thank you for telling me the truth. So when I take him to Charcoal Pit, what this was really about was when I was 16, I was caught in a situation where I wasn't driving.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a house. We went to they wanted to get, I thought, some weed. We walk in this house, and this was like a major drug dealer.
Mm.
There were garbage bags of stuff lined the hallway. And I remember walking in there going, oh my God, I am in such the wrong place.
Yeah.
In the wrong time. I have goosebumps like just even telling you the story. And I had no way out or whatever. So I was at the mercy of whatever's going to happen.
Ooh, I hope this goes well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by the grace of God, right, I'm okay. But when I walked into that house with Gregory, what the trauma, right, the trapped trauma, the samskara, the issue that my regret, my trying to be the cool girl and hanging with the older kids got me into a place that was really quite scary and could have gone super bad.
Yeah.
And so all of that energy that was stored in me showed up when he went to go, and I walked in that house. Something triggered it, like something.
You're like, oh God.
And I went right back
to it.
I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no
That's
idea.
crazy. It's crazy how those samskaras live in you until they're addressed.
So I told him the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I told him everything. And the first words out of this 16-year-old's mouth was, thank you, Mom. Thank you for telling me that. I had no idea that's why you were acting so crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to him.
And he
Think about
never went back to that house
Yeah.
again. He never asked to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think what's so powerful about that, and one of the things that I've learned, and this conclusion kind of just hit me, is as a parent, your kids only know you as a parent. They don't know that you had a life before that until you tell them.
Yeah.
So you're always looked at as this, like, you know, perfect figure and blah, 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 and all these things. And one of the things that me and my dad have gotten close with is, like, you know, we're friends now. Like, we'll bullshit, tell stories about, you know, he'll tell me stories and all those kinds of things. And you start to realize, like, wow, you know, your parent is more human than you might think they are.
Yeah.
You know? And so by being vulnerable and open about those things, it's way more, you know, it's way more powerful of a relationship.
Yeah.
That's heavy. You had to be crapping yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and to sit down and tell your son, how do I know this? Because I did cocaine. Because I smoked pot. So I know this because I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of hard to do at first.
I feel like that's one of those things where it can go kind of one of two ways. Either it goes well, or it's like, this is, oh, well, my parents did it, so I can do it.
Yeah.
You know, how do you guard against that?
Oh, because I journaled the whole thing. I mean, I feel like I wasted so many years of my life trying to be something that I really wasn't. And I wonder where I would be now if I hadn't spent so many years partying my butt off.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I know that's a catch-22 because
Sure.
I know that those life experiences actually led me to where I am now.
Right.
And I wholeheartedly believe that. But there were some times where I know I had angels. I mean, I should have been dead or clearly in deep shit trouble.
Yeah.
So I own how I feel about it, and all the guilt and suffering and regret that came along with it. So it's not that I just told the story. I told them everything about the story.
Right. Do you think that there's always, it's hard when people look back on those things and they'll say, I don't regret anything because this is what I've learned. I sometimes find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I do.
Because people, I do think people have regrets. We just find a way to put them in a better place.
Yeah.
Right? So, because I feel like there's this sort of stigma about like, no regrets or that kind of thing. And it's like, it's okay to have things that you've done in your past or things that you're not proud of or things that you regret. I think it's one of those deals where, and it might be a really passive way to do this, but you can't change it. So stop trying to and just play the cards that you have right now.
Well, that's where we're kind of like, right back to what's the light side of a dark situation. So what lesson of that pain and suffering, what good can I take of that? So it's not that we don't have the regret, it's that I can't change it, but I can learn from it and I can grow from it.
Yeah.
And how can I do that?
Do you think that was like one of your aha moment? Like, I'm standing in the middle of this drug house. Like,
oh man,
what am I doing here? I need to change.
Yeah. Well, and I know I did a lot in a younger age to be cool and accepted and part of a group. I mean, we moved from the city to the county, and I did not. I was a city girl. I did not fit in. I was not one of those preppy girls.
Yeah.
And I changed a lot of me
to try to assimilate and
right in order to feel accepted and be part of the group and yeah.
That's how it was for me too. We were all like, I look back on it and I had this group of friends that we all hung out together, and we always kind of like, there was always that little edge of like, someone's gonna try this like drug or try this thing or go steal this or whatever it was, getting into trouble somehow. And there's always this edge of like, who's gonna be cool with it and who's not gonna be cool with it. And like, whoever is cool with it, we'll keep them with us or whatever. And so for me, I think that's part of where this like adaptability that I have comes from, is like, there was nothing that I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like, oh, you wanna go to Philly and do this, or you wanna go do that? Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Cause I wanted to just like, I wanna hang out, man. These guys are my friends and that sort of thing. And the first time that I ever said no to something was kind of like this moment of clarity that I had.
What did you say no to?
And I think I've talked about that. No, I didn't talk to you about this. So going through, we graduated high school and everybody kind of comes back for winter break and whatnot, and I'm hanging out with my friends and talking to my one friend who I've known for years, and a guy that we do drugs together, we party together and all that kind of stuff, and really, aside from that, one of my best friends, and he's telling me about what he's doing at college and stuff, and like, we had dealt drugs before and we had done, so nothing was new to me. And he said, oh, I'm working for this guy and I'm selling, I think he was selling pills at the time, and then he started talking about heroin. And I was like, oh, okay, and like, didn't think anything of it really. And he's telling me about how he's making all this money doing it and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you want in. And for some reason, I have no idea why, he said, do you want in? And I remember sitting there, and it was only like 2 seconds had gone by, but in my head it was like an hour.
Yeah.
You know, and I just had this huge flash of like all this, like, you know, just this like flashing pictures of all these different things of, you know, and emotions that come with it of like, you know, this is what could happen, or this, and kind of like your life flashes before your eyes, like a really fast montage kind of thing. And for some reason, I was just kind of like, no, you know, and that was kind of the first time that I was ever like, no, I don't think I want to do that, because I don't want to, and not even that I didn't want to like do any certain drugs or anything along those lines. It was just, I don't know why I said no, to be honest with you. And that was it. And he said, oh, okay. And nothing happened. No, like, oh, you're not cool anymore. Nothing like that happened. Mm-hmm. And, but internally it was like, I said no, and that was it. Like, it wasn't, there wasn't any fear, there wasn't any like insecurity, there wasn't any worry. There was like a, yeah, you know, like almost a reassurance of that was the right decision to make, you know? And I think that from that moment, I just, without telling anybody, without, you know, expressing it and all this kind of stuff, I just, inside of myself, I was just, all right, man, you know, it's time for something new. And that was it. And
is that when you stopped partying?
Yeah. Began to, you know, that was the catalyst moment that, you know, I realized, you know, here's the way that I've been doing things.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't have to do it that way. You know, and what does that look like? Because otherwise, had I said yes, they would have just been doing the same thing and same thing and same thing. And everything inside of me wanted to be like, well, yeah, you know, I'm in. But for some reason, like almost unconsciously, I like see the words just no coming out of me, just without my control.
How did it feel in your body?
Honestly, it like nothing. You know, just like.
I feel like that's. I feel like that's kind of. Usually, the affirmation comes from how you feel after you've said or done something that needs to be said or done.
Yeah, it was like it wasn't like like I wasn't overwhelming with emotion. It was just kind of like a peaceful.
Good.
Yeah, that's it now.
Good.
You know, and I have a friend of mine who talks about the same thing, and he essentially came out of an overdose and was just like, I'm done now, I'm good, and that was it. And it's not it. I can't describe it. It's. I think it was. Yeah, it was just something showing me that there's another way of doing things. And like, no, I don't think you're going to do this stuff anymore, you know? And what's crazy about it is, and this is kind of where I draw these parallels, is my friend ended up dying. I think it was probably like 6 months to a year later of an overdose. And I didn't, you know? But I always wonder, you know, what if it's like the most parallel road ever, as far as like, dude, that could have happened to you, you know, that could have, and you know, I try not to live in a world of what ifs, but fuck man, what if? Like, that is something, and there's gotta be a higher power at work here. And that's why I'm trying to, you know, focus on myself so much. And also, you know, I try to be as helpful to people as I can, because I think that that's one of the reasons that something said no for me and kind of set me on a different direction. Yeah. I think so. A lot of things that I do now kind of derive from that sort of like quiet confidence, as far as, you know, this is what I'm going to do now.
Do you pray? You have
Not-
conversations with
I
God?
have conversations, not regularly pray, but like I'll talk all the time. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of how I start every morning.
Mm-hmm.
Usually either a conversation with the divine, sometimes with someone who's passed over, or sometimes being really grateful. But a lot of people say that. I mean, if I wake up, like one of my habits is to become conscious of the first thought that enters my mind and then deliberately give it intention and attention. And so usually, I mean, lately I wake up and I'm like, oh, this is nice. I want to go back and, it's just really yummy in bed. And I feel so grateful, or, oh, I can't wait to get up and do this. And I'll have a conversation with God. But I think it started a long time ago because I got in the habit of waking up and recognizing I was having a negative thought as my first thought of the day. And I went, yo, you cannot do this. And so I think my prayer started as a way to stop the, like, oh crap, I got to do this today, or, to stop the negative thought. And then it became kind of a spiritual ritual.
Yeah.
And I light a candle and,
I like that.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, what are we going to do today?
Yeah. And that's a conscious thing that you started doing?
Yeah.
I'll ask people that when I get into like coaching conversations and stuff is, what's the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning? Or what's the last thing you think about when you go to bed? Because generally that's where you'll learn the most about what state of life you're in.
Inhale.
Yeah.
Exhale.
Right.
Follow the breath. That's the last thing.
That's it?
At nighttime, I very intentionally, sometimes I have a whole stack of books.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a total book junkie.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily have to read one. Like I might be reading 5 books at the same time.
Okay.
And so I'll pick whichever one is speaking to me and I'll read something about that. They're all spiritually rich books. And I may, I'm reading When Things Fall Apart.
Mm-hmm.
And Pema's talking about, the Buddhist take on meditation. And Vipassana meditation I've been doing for a long time, but I just like the way she explains it. And so normally, most nighttime, right before bed, I'm focusing on breath and meditation right before I go to sleep. I mean, you sleep like a baby that way.
Yeah. That probably puts you in a great mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But depending on dreams or whatever, that could change how I wake up.
Because dreams that's a whole thing. What do you know about that and how that connects? Because you learn everything from
Oh
dreams.
my God. Because I have some wild dreams.
Yeah.
And so, and I had this really dear friend who, because nobody, all those dream books, I don't believe in all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Your dreams are your subconscious trying to communicate to your conscious mind, right? So when you get that thought, if I get up and I write down what it was and I just leave it. So I just write down everything I can remember and I walk away from it. Mm-hmm. Because, when you're in it, it's like so bizarre.
Yeah.
You can't, and so you just write it all down. I know.
It's like Rocky Horror Picture Show.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
And then a couple days later, I'll come back and I'll go and read it and I'll pick like a sentence. Well, what is that supposed to mean to you? And then the answer like smacks you in the face.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I don't write down my dreams. I should start doing that.
Oh yeah.
I don't really dream. Well, I guess I do, but I never, it's rare that I'll wake up and remember a dream.
Just ask to remember it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Archangel Michael, Divine Spirit. Thanks for letting me remember my dream tomorrow. Good night.
Yeah.
And you'll remember.
and it'll come.
Uh-huh.
That's crazy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think, oh man, I love it. I think that's such a, just like this whole idea of higher power, something greater than ourselves, guiding you or showing you what to do or how to be or where to be or any of those types of things. It immediately takes the burden off of yourself to try to figure that out. Which I think a lot of people might get stuck in that trap. And I get stuck in that too, is I'm trying to like, all right, Case, you gotta figure this shit out, man. You gotta, and you put that pressure on yourself. Do you feel like you relieve pressure off of yourself when you kind of turn that responsibility over to what yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Never really worried about what's going on? I mean, not that you're not worried, but worried like, all right, what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
You'll know when you know?
Sometimes I worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just wait.
Yeah. Or like so I'll pray about it
Mm-hmm.
and I'll journal about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like prayer is kind of talking to God, conversations with God, and meditating is listening.
Mm-hmm.
And so if something's weighing on my mind and I have a conversation, I probably journal about it, and then I enter meditation. Whatever I get in meditation, I trust 100%.
Yeah.
And I take action.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of times what people don't do is they get a message and they ignore it or they don't give it credit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no way, that was meant for me.
Yeah. Do you think, is it possible, or have you experienced this, like some things that you get in meditation, do you think, like at what point what if you're getting something wrong? What if your ego or something is getting in the way?
I don't think I know what you mean by that.
So like, when you meditate, you're getting in touch with your intrinsic, like subconscious, essentially. What if, and that's trying to send you like the real truths or the messages or things that you're supposed to be or looking for answers. What if, or is it possible for like the ego to jump in?
Oh.
And what if you get the wrong thing? How do you siphon through certain things?
So if I take a question into meditation, what am I supposed to do next? I'm looking for guidance in dealing with Douglas, and I go into meditation. And actually, this actually came out of meditation. One of the things was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And so I started intentionally planning fun events with Douglas. So I don't really know that ego, like I don't know, maybe it's the way I phrase the question,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of trust whatever comes in and I just go with it. And if it is little self operating, and I'll find out fast enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you never really
I don't really doubt
just
it.
trust it. It's that trustful surrender we were talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah. I agree.
I don't doubt it at all.
That's a hard thing for people to do. I know that's hard for me to do. Because the most recent thing, we were talking about this before, that trustful surrender, it's like, I hope this works. I hope this is the right move.
Oh, so that's the other thing. I'm not attached to whatever happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As in outcomes?
Yeah. Yeah, I hope this works. That's an attachment.
Yeah.
Right there.
I think for me, what I worried most about with that is because you question, like, am I making the right decision? Because, well, yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm like worried about what the outcome's going to be. Because you always want to set yourself up for success, you know? But what if you're setting yourself up to fail without even knowing it?
You're not in control of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like, I call it like a blind loyalty, you know, to just trust that whatever answers you're getting, roll with it.
Yeah.
Do it. And I think that's part of, and I never really thought about it like this, is like being attached to outcomes, but some people phrase it as just letting go and letting, you know, universal action kind of
Yeah, I think people say
take
that
its
all the
course.
time. I don't think they really do it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, people will say that, but do we really understand the meaning behind what that's supposed to look like or what that's supposed to mean? You know, and not all the time. But when you have someone like, you know, who lets go and really lets go, really allows, you know, higher powers or universal energies to take over, or whatever you believe in, whatever God it is that you believe in, or anything along those lines, doesn't matter. Whenever you surrender, that's when you can really start to move forward.
Yeah.
Which is a tough thing to do. No one wants to surrender. No one wants to quit.
I think it's a practice too. Like
Yeah.
it gets, like we were talking, does it get easier with practice? Does intuition get sharper? Yeah, so does trustful surrender.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Ishvara Pranadanya, I didn't start doing this like just 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for like 20 years.
Sure.
So.
But you're a living example of, hey man, there's value to this. You know, this way of thought, or this way of, this awareness and consciousness is clearly works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you have to do it. That's experiential learning. That's the only way. I could sit here and talk myself blue in the face. You gotta show up and do it. That's why you guys, you'll get this weekend, but like truth, emotional truth, that's the work. I mean, that's the work. In kindness, in presence, raw, vulnerable, trustfully surrendering, detaching from outcome to say what needs to be said in a given moment in time, honoring all of the limbs. That's the practice.
Yeah. Powerful, man.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And that definitely
It really
gets
is.
easier.
Yeah. It is hard.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough, and I think one of the things, you know, like when you talk about leaders and all, you know, we're finding out, or we're able to express, you know, leaders are vulnerable. You know what I mean? It's a quality or a trait of a leader, not this like stoic, like, you know, like we'll say, like a stoic person who never wavers and that kind of thing. It's the person who, you know, like the mom who says, hey, I've done this.
It's what makes Oprah so relatable.
Yeah.
She's like vulnerable.
Completely open.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good practice to be in too, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody has something that they can call upon that they might be holding in for protection, that they can express and help somebody else with. And I think that's something that is really big, and that's something I believe in too, is we're, as much as we need to, you know, pay attention to ourselves, I think we have to use our lives or use what we know or what we're doing with ourselves to help somebody else.
That's
service.
That's Dharma.
Yeah.
So you take your suffering and your joyful purpose and your God-given strengths, and you mix them all together to find your Dharma in loving service. It's that simple.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like the CrossFit, the coaching, the rah-rah, the positive energy, the kick-ass stuff, coupled with, and it might not necessarily be quote-unquote addiction as it is attachment therapy, to infuse fun is kind of like where, that's why I said I think you need to sit for a while.
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel it coming together, but it's not quite there yet.
Yeah. Because there is a special place you go into, like in a CrossFit workout, where you're like, you have no walls. When you're trying to breathe, or you're like, quote unquote suffering through a workout.
Yeah.
You're broken down, man. You're not gonna worry about.
And there's this camaraderie. There's this element of helping one another. There's this rah-rah. There's a motivational factor. It's all there. It's naked.
Yeah.
It's raw, naked.
Honest,
yeah, true. And that's why I think you might kind of be in the right place. You just need a little twist to it.
I'm gonna figure it out in my dreams tonight.
Yeah.
What to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you should have your conversation with your dad, because I think that will help you too.
Yeah.
And this weekend you'll get some guidance on steps to take. Because until we deal, and we all have it with one of our parents, with the hurt and pain, that it's kind of like one of the deepest original samskaras where all other things stem from, right? Till we actually start to deal and process that, it has branches or tentacles that it's repeated. Like, really? Mine's my mom, My mom, and it's really funny because in her eyes, she probably thought she was building me up. In my eyes, I was always being torn down.
You think everybody has?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's like a...
With bar none. Everybody does, with a primary parent.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Totally.
And you kind of start to clean the slate with that person, and then because if you don't, then you marry your father.
Yeah.
I marry my mother. Yeah, you marry someone with those qualities because you're still trying to resolve it.
I see. Yep. Kind of like how, those same scars, they just sit in you.
Oh my God.
Until it's addressed.
And then you wake up and go, oh my God, I married my father. And
that's true. That's,
Yeah. And you're like, and then you've grown so far, but the person you married didn't have a chance to. Yeah. Or maybe they did.
Is there a way to avoid that as a parent?
Hopefully you get enlightened before you get married.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's why I'm teaching the UD kids and the WellMU kids, because I would really like to see an enlightened society before 40, 50.
Yeah.
Because usually what happens is, it's in India, you're in the householder phase. You're getting your job, you're developing your profession, you're getting married, you're having babies, and then you're all done that, and then you start to enter the sannyasin stage where you're like, what does life mean? No.
Yeah.
Get what life means.
Yeah, get it first.
Yeah.
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 That's a good way. Yeah, because then you can just be more,
Who you are.
yeah, for longer.
Yeah.
When do you think, is there a certain amount of time? Well, I guess not necessarily, as in,
Oh my God.
what is it?
We've been talking a
Oh,
lot.
we have been talking for a long time. Yeah, we can wrap up in a sec. But I think, is there a certain amount of time, like, you know, so a lot of people in this sort of thing or personal growth, they have life experiences where, you know, like they were upset or they were lost or those sorts of things, and then we start to develop and work on them, and like around like the age of 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. Is there a way to, like, even from a young age with kids, just have them apply these, you know, things to everyday life, to where you're not ever like, oh man, I can't believe I was at that point in my life, like I need to make a change now and start taking myself seriously? Like, is that able to be avoided?
I don't know the answer to that. I would hope that the more I practiced and I shared and I was moving through and beyond my habit patterns that were keeping me trapped in a crazy mind,
Mm-hmm.
and that honesty handed down to my children would cause them to become more conscious and aware,
Mm-hmm.
and that the trickle down effect would hopefully birth conscious and enlightened beings. I would certainly hope that,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know.
Yeah, just gotta wait and see.
I mean, samsara is the cycle of life and death, and actually this is a perfect topic for Halloween because that's what it's about. And you're destined to repeat your same until all samskaras and vasanas have been resolved. You are destined to be reborn and repeat the lessons until you get it. That's the karmic wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be on that wheel.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Let's
yeah,
address this shit. Let's get it done.
let's check.
Yeah.
You know, let's work on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's happening. The more I
hope
do
so.
this stuff, the more, and in the world today, we have access to so many different things, and then whether it's good or bad, because it can definitely be bad, but it can definitely be good too. And I think that's one of my goals here is, like, talk about, you know, social media and internet and all these types of things. Like, why, you know, let's use that stuff as a platform to, like, really make a difference, really make a change, because things like, you know, getting off the karmic wheel and such is a very possible thing for people to do, which is going to help them, not just help them, but their children, their children's children. You're literally changing.
We need to get to kids your age
Yeah.
before you have children.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can start this movement, almost this thing, or this, like, awareness, this consciousness of this, you know, we can really change the world, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
I hope.
do it. I
Yeah.
think so.
That's what I'm working on.
Yeah. You're doing a good job of it, man. I'll tell you.
I love what I do.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
Watching people go from darkness into the light,
It's pretty cool.
it's super cool.
Yeah.
Even just little glimpses. And they'll fall back and go into the dark cubby for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll bump into them and you'll go, hey, yeah, how's it going? No, like, yeah, I know I bumped into you for a reason. And,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I knew this was coming.
Yeah.
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 That's cool, man.
That's really cool.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This was awesome.
This was fun.
Yeah. Right on. All right, how
great.
can
So
sorry, go ahead.
you
I
don't
can-
just let this thing go. You edit this, right?
Yeah, I mean,
This is like a long, nobody's ever going to listen to us talk for an hour and a half.
I usually just put them up. I usually just let it go.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Because I think, so one of my goals with this and what I love about this is just the conversation, you know, and I think that we're losing the art of conversation because of things like, you know, texting and social media and all these types of things where we're seeing, you know, like the highlight reel of a person's life per se. So I like to just leave it and just, you know, the whoever's listening is just part of our conversation.
Oh,
you know,
that's nice.
And try to change it up a little bit because there's so much value to all this access to as many people as we have access to right now that I think let's not, you know, put a negative label on it. Let's use it for something good.
Good.
Yeah.
So you just gave yourself an idea.
What's that?
The art of conversation.
Yeah.
How could you use the space that you've created during different times to stimulate the art of conversation in the community and restore presence?
I'm gonna think about that.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not just this. It's bigger than just this.
Right.
Uh-huh. And you can use the Shedding the Masks introduction as a way to kickstart it.
There you go. I like it. This is gonna fester. This is gonna grow. I can feel it. Something cool is gonna happen here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep you updated.
Uh-huh.
Cause I agree, man. I love it. This is like you asked me earlier. What do you like to do, or what do you love to do? I could sit here and talk to people all day long.
Do you know what? And the thing I love about the CrossFit thing is because the CrossFit people are starved for spirituality, but there is a raw willingness and determination, tapas, steadfast discipline about them that makes them a great audience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Uh-huh.
Because they're the type of person that's willing to kind of go to that
Uh-huh.
dark place
Uh-huh.
to, you know,
Uh-huh.
come out of it.
Yeah.
How do we marry the two? The
Yeah.
physical and the conscious.
I think conversations with Casey's a really good idea.
Yeah. I like it.
Uh-huh.
There's a way. There's definitely something.
Pray about it.
I will. I
Yeah.
will. That's a good.
Take it into meditation.
Yeah, I'm going to.
And don't have any expectation. Help me see what I'm supposed to see in order to restore conversations, intimate, real conversations in our culture. Just whatever your question is, boom,
Connection
and just
yeah.
leave it there. Don't like
Yeah.
corner your. Don't
Right.
make, make it a narrow
Keep it
define.
open
Yeah,
and- yeah. Yeah.
and then go.
I will.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. This is all I'm gonna think about all day. I'm not getting anything done all day. All right. So real quick, then, is there One Yoga, Instagrams, Facebooks, anything like that? How can people find you?
Yeah, I really suck at Instagram.
Yeah. Oh, dude, me too. I'm actually. pretty
I'm
bad at
so bad at it.
Yeah.
I do. So One Yoga has a Facebook page is really actually pretty good. My website's www.1-yoga.com. I blog there. I really stink at Instagram.
Yeah.
I know I'm supposed to be better at it. Like I have
I'm with you.
my website lady
with
is
you.
like, you need to be, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I do, like, I just want to post, like, on Facebook and have it magically go out
Just go to everything.
to everything.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have to learn a new. And like, we had the best time. My son and I went to like Hollow Scream at Busch Gardens this past weekend.
Cool.
It was a total blast. And I'm having this great time. And you know, don't forget to post pictures. I'm like, I don't want to post pictures.
Yeah.
I want to have fun.
I want to enjoy the moment.
I didn't bring my camera, my phone in.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that those rides, if that camera's
It
not
falls
like
out,
strapped to your body,
yeah,
it's
going
gone.
down.
So,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. One Yoga.
Yeah.
Check it out. One-yoga.
Yeah, the number one yoga.com.
Right on. Thanks,
Thank
Susan.
you.
All right.
Thanks, sweetie.